Good morning. My name is Kenyatta Skiles, and I will be the moderator for today's episode of EYEJ Speaks. This week, we will be discussing connectivity. On behalf of the EYEJ team, I would like to thank all of those who have been part of the conversation for the past 9 weeks. EYEJ serves over 1,500 youth annually with the mission of empowering and amplifying the voices of teens and preteens by bridging them with diverse individuals to engage in interactive discussions centered around social justice. The theme of today's discussion is based on curriculum from our virtual signature program, Youth Online Discussing Justice, which is hosted over the course of a 12-week period for 6th to 12th graders. Youth Online Discussing Justice serves as a platform for youth to exchange ideas and gain perspectives on social justice issues. It came out of the need to support young people during the COVID-19 pandemic, but like the conversation we will be having today, there are countless young people across Cleveland that don't have access to a resource like YODJ. That is one reason why I want to thank the EYEJ Youth Council. We will discuss their work shortly, but they have made connectivity their social justice initiative. As such, this past week, they spearheaded the Empower Day of Giving campaign, which helped to raise over $20,000 in support of their connectivity advocacy work. Additionally, I urge all viewers to visit our Facebook page and sign the Youth Council's petition to the Mayor of Cleveland asking to get broadband internet access to all people of Cleveland and e-learning devices for all Cleveland youth. We have almost 600 signatures, and we are trying to get to 1,000, so be sure to lend your name to this important topic. As always, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram to learn about all of the programming and events from EYEJ. And for today's program, be sure to ask questions. We love questions. Make comments and use the hashtags EYEJ Speaks and social justice in the comments section. So if you're watching today's program, and doing so absent of constant buffering, consider yourself lucky. We live in a country where, according to the Federal Communications Commission, 21 million Americans lack high-speed internet access. In Ohio, only 47.7% of residents currently have access to low-priced internet plans. The Cleveland Municipal School District, or CMSD, includes 38,000 students and 27,000 families. According to CMSD's superintendent, an astounding 40%, let me say this again, 40% of those families do not have access to broadband internet. Additionally, 2/3 of the children in CMSD do not have appropriate e-learning devices. With the implications of connectivity to health, education, jobs access, and social engagement, today, along with our esteemed panel of experts, we will discuss what it truly means to be impacted by the digital divide. So for today's discussion, we have Mai Moore, founder and executive director of EYEJ, Chantal Brown, a youth council member, Bill Callahan, Research and Policy Director with National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and Adam King, Technologist and Creative Principal at 945. So welcome, everybody. Before we jump into the conversation, I want to open this up to Mai and ask, why are we having this conversation in the first place? How does this connect to the work of EYEJ?
Well, that's a big question. The focus of connectivity really came from was really from COVID-19 and just listening to what was happening in the community, what was happening with our youth from YODJ and really listening to what the EYEJ Youth Council wanted to focus on. And Chantal is going to talk about the Youth Council a little bit more deeply. But also, I think looking at our organization at EYEJ, that diversity, there's a lot of tech people, including myself, you know, who are involved, and just our vision. We had brought this topic of a strategy for the pivot of EYEJ to a collective board and managing board meeting. And it was interesting because we were talking about the digital divide, but we were using the word connectivity all throughout. And then I think it was Lean who said, well, that's interesting because the mission has always been about connectivity, meaning that we are all connected as people, right? The decisions we make, the impact that we make. And EYEJ is very good at being this middleman, this connector. And so that was an interesting twist on this connectivity word. But really, you know, our focus, not only with the Youth Council, but really throughout the organization, is this focus on the digital divide, is this focus on getting internet broadband for all Cleveland youth, and really backing, you know, what Eric Gordon is saying about this urgent need. Obviously, because, you know, what's coming up in the pipeline for this school year, you know, CMSD, you know, starting in September and being 9 weeks, you know, online, where, you know, again, you have a large percentage, 40% without this internet broadband access. This is detrimental, right? This is urgent. It's a little bit scary in my opinion. And it really needs to be focused on. And to go even deeper, this you know, digital divide, this issue around connectivity, this issue around redlining this is not a new issue. According to Leon Wilson from the Cleveland Foundation, Cleveland has been working on the digital divide for 25 years. So this isn't a new issue. And this goes even deeper. It goes back to the redlining that has happened in Cleveland, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a moment. This goes back to the amount of poverty that we have in Cleveland. You know, 50% of our youth in Cleveland, the city of Cleveland, are on the poverty level. And, you know, if you want to add some statistics to that, Cleveland is the 4th worst connected city in the nation, according to the US Census data in 2018. You know, and I could go on and on. You know, we're talking about 121,000 households, no internet access of any kind in Cleveland. And the problem with this is internet is a basic utility. You need it. I mean, we know this. I mean, if I don't have my phone for a day, how disconnected are we, right? If we don't have our light on, if we don't have our water, if we don't have our gas, what does that do to us? And so this is, you know, a very important and urgent topic, and I appreciate everyone being on here today to talk about this.
Great, thank you, and thank you. You mentioned a number of topics there, and just for the audience, I think it would be great to level set and get some definitions on some of those ideas. So I open this up to the panel. So you mentioned connectivity, you mentioned digital redlining, and you mentioned the digital divide. So I think those are three subjects. Can somebody kind of do a deeper assessment so that everybody's on the same field with what those topics entail?
I nominate Bill to talk about digital redlining.
Well, let's start with digital redlining.
You might have some visuals.
Well, it's hard to talk about digital redlining without talking about connectivity. But actually, I think that connectivity in general is something people do understand. It's what you have when you're able to pull out your phone and connect to someone else. We're talking here about electronic connectivity. Mai made the point that it's not by any means the only or the most important kind, but it is the kind that at this point, particularly right now, people are using for a very, very large proportion of their human connectivity. And So in a city like Cleveland, generally people have telephone access, data access over a phone, some form of internet access at home, and then other kinds of access in other places where they have to go, like school or work. Those are all varieties of either called wireline, which is connectivity that comes over some sort of hard wire, or radio. Right? Those are kind of the two ways that we do it. And the issues of the digital divide and redlining really have to do with inequities in people's ability to have and use those different kinds of connectivity for the things that we need to do in order to live our lives. Let me just kind of take the redlining issue because it obviously comes up a lot in Cleveland. And it's a term that got popularized around here mainly through a report that some of us did about in 2017. So I think a lot of people know that redlining historically is the practice of banks and insurance companies geographically discriminating against people in the ability to get conventional loans or the ability to get conventional insurance and thereby sell houses, buy houses, insure houses, but based on a geography that is tied to race. Right? That's the history. Goes back to federal authorities, federal housing authorities in the 30s. It's a history that has come back to people's attention a lot in the last couple of years, but it's one of the founding kind of policy blocks on which segregation and inequity in Cleveland and many other cities have been created. So that connection between discrimination and geography is what redlining is really about. And it came from drawing red lines on maps, right? On this side of the line, you are not going to get a conventional loan. What we discovered in 2017 was that AT&T, which is one of the two major connectors in Cleveland, very quietly and secretly, which they were able to do because regulation had been essentially eliminated in prior years, when they rolled out a modernization of their system that would allow people to have much faster internet and have competitive service in a lot of neighborhoods, they quietly did not roll out that system in around 4 of their central offices in Cleveland. And what that meant was that Huff, Glenville, South Collinwood, Fairfax, Kinsman, the Near West Side, all did not have that modernization and therefore were stuck with much slower, older service, and still are to a large extent. So we called it redlining when we revealed this, because it was an explicit decision by a major institution not to invest in a geographic area because that geographic area was demographically not where they wanted to be, right? And you can argue about whether it was race or whether it was economics, poverty, because these are the poorest areas in the city, or some combination of the two, right? But very clearly, it was those neighborhoods not getting services that other neighborhoods did because the company didn't want to be doing its normal business in those neighborhoods. So that's what we mean by redlining. The effect of it now is that there are many parts of the city where if you have AT&T DSL service, for your internet service, you're getting very, very slow service for the same amount of money that other people are getting 100 meg fiber service for, very fast service. And the speeds that are often provided are inadequate to do things like getting on a Zoom conference with your teacher, right? So that's the effect. It doesn't mean that people in those neighborhoods can't get any kind of internet service, because cable is actually pretty universal. What it does mean, though, is that there's no competition for your business, and you're going to pay that $70 a month that you cannot afford to the cable company, or you're going to have nothing.
Wow, thank you. That's a lot to unpack. So let me ask you, because you mentioned pricing, and I think that's also an important part of the conversation. Um, right now, where are the checks and balances and the oversight around making sure that there is affordability? Because that is the difference between somebody's small business being, impacted, that impacts learning and all of these other issues. Where are the checks and balances? What's being done now?
So first of all, it's our belief at NDIA and local folks we work with that the major reason why all those people that Mai was speaking about in the city don't have internet, the major reason is cost, right? It's the connection between having it and coming up with $70 a month, which is the ticket of admission. That's a gas bill, right? That's more than most people's electric bills, and it's a bill that's on top of all the other bills you got to pay because you still need a phone, right? So it's a kind of big addition to people's budget, and if you're poor, you have a hard enough time getting the electric bill paid, right? So we really believe that's the major obstacle in Cleveland that's creating most of this problem. There is no oversight. This is an unregulated industry, right? It's formally unregulated at the state level. The Public Utility Commission is forbidden to deal with internet issues. What used to be municipal oversight of cable was eliminated in 2007. So there is no state or local regulation. And the Federal Communications Commission, which is supposed to be the authority that deals with these issues, has actually declared that this is not a regulated utility and they're not going to touch it, but they've never regulated prices. So basically these guys can charge whatever they want to charge, and what they want to charge is a lot more than most people can pay. And all of the ways that people have gotten more affordable connectivity have been through some sort of special arrangement that a company has done for some limited group of people in order to get somebody's cooperation in a merger or something like that. But there is no systematic regulation at all. The only defense that people have against these prices is either much greater competition, which is very hard to create, right? Or in some cases, people have figured out ways to share service in order to share a bill. And we can talk about ways that this is being done around the country, but in Cleveland right now, it's fair to say there is no limit on the prices that these guys can charge.
You see why I volunteered, Bill?
Don't worry, we're getting to you in a minute, so don't worry.
I can listen to Bill all day.
But I wanna ask you, Mai, from a social justice perspective. Bill, I just want to get into this issue a little bit more about the financial component. So here's a stat I found. In 2018, 2/3 of Ohio households without broadband had a household income of below $35,000, and nearly half had incomes below $20,000. And then when you look at that, and the monthly bill for home internet is $60, $70 a month at minimum. From a social justice lens, can you talk a little bit about that? I would say from a general perspective, from an EYEJ perspective, what are you doing, and what are some of the recommendations that you have for other organizations in terms of coalition building around this work?
Sure. So let me start out, and everyone who knows me knows I'm very straightforward. So Bill is telling the overall, information about, redlining, who it impacts on an overall level. But let's be really honest here. In the city of Cleveland, who it's impacting is majority African Americans, right? The redlined areas. We also have telecom companies that don't want to invest in those areas because of how expensive it is and for other reasons. But the reason why, again, this is so urgent, yes, we have COVID-19 happening. We have kids who are expected to, pass their tests, graduate from school. So we have this online learning component, but we're also forgetting about, things like a lot of these kids need to survive. They have to go online to fill out an application, see if someone is asking them for an interview. We have to think about the crisis that we're having with the epidemic of toxic stress with our youth in Cleveland, and the anxiety levels that we're all at, not just with youth, but the mental health situation with our youth is detrimental, and they need access to telehealth. We have to also think about kids are not being in school, and if they're not, going to be able to be online, and there aren't many resources available in their neighborhood, what happens? Violence, right? So we've had an incredible amount of violence occur the last couple of months. So that impacts this. But, waiting 2-3 years, 4 or 5 more years for internet broadband to be implemented in the city is not acceptable, especially if we've been working on it for 25 years. So you've got that layer, and you've got this layer of urgency with these kids going back to school. And I'll just give an example. Like I said, we see a lot of things. I'm sure Chantal is going to share some stories. We've talked to a lot of youth from our YODJ programming, youth council. We have YOU kids. We're in many different, community groups. And the problem, what is making things even worse right now, is that this is not just like a straightforward problem. Like, you've got some kids who have devices, some kids who are promised devices don't have them. You have kids who only have a smartphone. They're asked to do a 5-page paper on their phone. They only have their phone. I mean, who can do a 5-page paper on their phone, right? You have some that just flat out don't have internet access. Going even deeper, an example, one of our schools that we serve, Miles Park, just in that one school, they have kids in so many different situations where kids have 4 different kind of devices when you break out the population of kids, and no IT person on top of that. Okay. And then you've got kids who are getting devices. Yay, they got devices, have no clue how to turn them on, how to connect to the internet. I mean, I remember when I got my first computer, you have to really spend time learning, reading the directions, asking people, calling, your customer service. So there's this digital literacy piece. So this is a big problem. And I think I know that we're making it more and more complex right now, because what the good thing is that a lot of community organizations stepped up to the plate because of COVID-19 and bought hotspots. But from my perception, this is making things even worse, because number one, hotspots are not long-term. And then you've got multiple different kind of hotspots. They're coming from all different directions in the city, different carriers, different, people who produce hotspots. You got kids who don't know how to use hotspots. And again, this is not a long-term solution. So, I just want to express, this is really serious, like really serious. And then I forgot the biggest part. We have a supposed election. I don't know, as of this morning, might get delayed, but how are people supposed to prepare for voting or actually vote or get information? Guys, this is very, very, very serious. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I jump into the next question, I just want to ask the audience, if you have any questions for this panel, we will read them towards the end of the program. Send them in now. We will definitely get to them today. So Chantal, I want to shift to you as the youth council leader on this panel. The EYEJ Youth Council is heavily focused on the work of connectivity right now. So can you describe to the audience how you all came to this decision to focus on this, and what are the goals that you're hoping to achieve?
Well, we really, as a as a whole, the youth council spent a lot of time on what we want to focus on for our next social justice initiative, because when we first got together, I think that we kind of did a lot of initiatives in one, which sort of overwhelmed some people that we were kind of trying to ask for support and to help get some of the things kickstarted. As we mentioned, that there's more than one epidemic or issue going on in Cleveland in regards to youth, the redlining, lack of digital literacy, and overall stress. So we wanted to come up with something that was still relevant, and also that people wouldn't have any, I'll say, political argument against. Because say if we did a topic such as police brutality, which is also relevant and affects youth, there are also a lot of cooks in the kitchen with that. And also there are a lot of people saying, well, all lives matter. Black lives don't matter, all lives matter. So we kind of just wanted to pick something that we know we could get a lot of support and push through, and affects all of us as youth. A lot of us are in school right now, and our ability to get devices and connect with our teachers, that affects us, or have siblings in school. So.
Thank you.
Can I add on to that a little bit? So just what Chantal's talking about, so the Youth Council was formed in 2017 through Partnership for Safer Cleveland. They came to us and said, hey, can you put together a youth council? And I said, sure, that's right up our alley. We want them to make recommendations around what's happening with youth safety, because that was a big focus at the time. And so through 6 months, very intensive process, these kids who didn't know each other, they applied. We had 42 people apply, age 15 to 25, who wanted to be part of this and who represented every single district in Cleveland. And through this intensive process, we looked at every injustice that these kids face, and they decided themselves that they wanted to focus on police-youth relationships, this epidemic of toxic stress and life skills. And they made this incredible presentation, April 30th, 2018. And 3 times before that, they had asked for, we were told for them to ask for money for their recommendation. And you guys know how Cleveland is. They did this incredible job. I mean, they were all over the press. They inspired many different organizations. But what happened was crickets, right? The city there's no sense of urgency in the city. And a lot of times we don't listen to youth. And if you can think about how impactful that was, this wasn't a presentation where it was just maybe like a neighborhood, leader kind of presentation. This was, U.S. Attorney General, Chief of Cleveland Police, foundations, banks, sports players, media were there. And to not be, I can't say the word acknowledged, but supported in what they asked for is not acceptable. So I think to what Chantal is saying, what my guidance to them is EYJ, first of all, is very much about authenticity, right? Like, they came up with this themselves. They went through everything. They looked at the Black Lives Matter. They looked at COVID-19, the police murders, all that. But these kids deserve a win. And what Chantal is talking about is this solution about getting internet broadband urgently in 60 days is something that can be realistically done. It's something that is what Chantal is talking about. It's universal. It's something that we all acknowledge that is important. And I think most importantly, this youth council is very focused on how do we empower other youth? That's their goal, right? Their goal is to make positive systematic change. How can we empower youth? Guys, internet broadband, this would be a great win for this city. And the beauty of it is it's a win-win for everybody. It's a community-focused initiative. It is about empowerment. It is about the youth. It is universal. So I think that's what Chantal's talking about. If I'm wrong there, Chantal, let me know. But
Add the footnote.
Now, speaking of community, I want to get to Adam. So we've started talking a little bit about from the government perspective. We started moving into the nonprofit perspective, but would love to get your insight on, from an individual level, what can people do to enact change? What are some non-traditional methods and strategies to create greater digital equity in Cleveland? And I think it would be great to hear a little bit about your work currently, as well as some of the past work you did with Digital C.
Sure. So I guess one thing I wanted to add to the conversation that have been said so far is, with redlining, if you look at any redlining map in the city of Cleveland, it all looks the same. So a digital equity redlining map looks the same as a financial institution, a financial literacy map looks the same as education, healthcare, all these things. So it's not like it's just one issue that needs to be addressed. All of these things affect each other. And that's one of the reasons that I've become so passionate about digital equity, is because it has its effect in everything. Try getting a bank account now. Try getting a job now. Try filling out a school application. Try talking to your friends. It all deals with being on the internet. Healthcare is now online as well. Getting your medical records, you need to have MyChart or something like that to get your medical records. So yeah, it's permeating into every aspect of our life. So the priority should be number one for making sure everyone has that equal ability to access the world. In terms of getting involved, it's a matter of speaking up. Like anything, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So realize that the access does exist. Solutions to getting access exist. Talk to your city council people. Talk to get involved with the mayor. Get involved with organizations like EYEJ, Neighborhood Connections. There's any number of organizations throughout the city that are working towards this, but speak up and make sure that your opinion, your view is known in these conversations. As Mai mentioned, different people have different types of devices, different types of needs. If people don't know what those specific needs are, it's hard to address them. So by all means, don't feel bothersome, or don't feel like you're annoying if you speak up on those things. One of the things that I keep stressing is, especially for kids, it's not a matter of aptitude when it comes to being involved in the digital economy. It's opportunity. So imagine if all these kids had the same access that kids out in Hunting Valley or Bay Village or anything had. What types of things could these kids come up with? What types of things could these kids do? Whether it be designing a video game or designing a network solution for the city of Cleveland, whether it be becoming a doctor, whether it be being a teacher. There's any number of things that people can do with that access. So I want to make sure that all these kids have the opportunity to live their fullest potential. In terms of unique ways that I'm addressing this as much as I can, I'm working on a series of what's called smart parks, devising a network that can go throughout the city, in the city proper. So activating public spaces, whether it be a vacant lot, whether it be a city park, whether it be the median down the middle of a street, creating a network of parks so that the technology is within a community. So think of all the cool things you see when you go to a large city like a Seattle or New York or things like that. But imagine that happening in Huff or Glenville or Central or Fairfax. I'm trying to bring those things to public spaces that aren't otherwise utilized in a way that works with a community, works with a city, not just on or to a city. Another one of the things I'm working on is a tech bus. So bringing technology, bringing innovation to a mobile classroom setting. With many things that happen in the city, getting to something is a barrier. If I can't get there, I can't participate, I can't learn, I can't grow, I can't get any benefit from it. But if you take technology to people on a mobile solution, that barrier for participation lowers. So think of a classroom where you're taking devices that can be stripped down, rebuilt, reused, but teaching kids how to do that. Now they have that ability to build their own devices or fix devices that are otherwise broken. Imagine having a classroom, and from that bus, you can also broadcast a signal. I know that's not the perfect solution. It's very much a triage solution, but if there's mobile access points you can actually provide internet access for folks in the meantime until that long-term solution is created.
Right. And where can people get more information about this? And when are you, for some of these initiatives, when are you expected to have them rolled out?
I'm hoping by 2021 I will. Well, so the smart parks I'm developing now. Hopefully by October, at least one will be fully operational. I'm acquiring more land to do more work. I'm hopefully working more with the city and a couple of different organizations as well to bring those to light. The tech bus. So I also wanted to reiterate, most of these things I'm doing by myself. So the time to execute has become a little bit longer, especially as things have been added to my plate. But 2021, I'm hoping to have a tech bus launched, ready to go. I've already had organizations ask me if they can utilize the bus with their programming and things like that. So yes, so there you go. So yeah, 2021, I should have both things operational fully. If anyone has any hands they want to provide, absolutely let me know. AdamDrewKing.com is my website if anyone wants to go to it, connect to me on Twitter, anything like that.
Great, thank you. So I see we have some questions from the audience. Thank you so much. If you have any more, please send them. So I'm gonna start with this one. So we have a question from Erica Tucker. CMHA rolled out a partnership with AT&T about 5 years ago that would provide access to residents. Can you contact CMHA to see how that program worked and if it is still operational? So is there any way to find out about the program?
I can tell you a little bit about that, and I think Adam also can. So CMHA, I think that's a little overstatement of the relationship between CMHA and AT&T. The AT&T has a program they call Access from AT&T, which the problems with which were one of the reasons why we originally started investigating redlining. But it's a $5 or $10 a month service for folks who are eligible for SNAP, and they did some publicity and signing people up for that program in some of the CMHA estates 3-4 years ago. It was one of a number of things that CMHA was doing simultaneously, including a partnership that they are still pursuing with Digital C, getting considerably cheaper and better connectivity into some of their buildings, and they've been exploring some other things as well. So it's true that CMHA does have a very aggressive program to try to create connectivity options for their residents in a number of places in the city, and that AT&T has been involved a little bit in some of that. But anyway, I think the idea that it was a special partnership is kind of, I think, press release talk, right? They did some stuff together. So.
The other thing with that, and actually I'm excited I can answer this question fully now that I'm not with Digital C. The quality of that service was not up to par at all either. So you would be paying for basically dial-up speeds,
yep.
And there was no requirement that they provide you with high-speed internet access with that deal. So if the building infrastructure allowed you to get access, you could get access, but it would be bare bones minimum literal dial-up speed connectivity. And if you're trying to do any kind of work or any kind of engagement online with the buffering and dropping of signal and things, it's not quality.
Yeah, actually, I could add very specifically to that. So a program that I was working with the Ashbury Senior Community Computer Center, one of the better trainers in the city, over on the west side, did a partnership with CMHA specifically to train people at Scranton Castle, which is a senior building over the near west side. Scranton Castle has 768 speeds, period, from AT&T. So even
Bill, real quick, can you tell people what that is?
Yeah, so 768K is basically the closest you can get to dial-up speed. It's very, very slow, right? And we basically told people you can get it for $5 from AT&T and it isn't worth it. So $5 a month. Similar kinds of speeds in the lakeside units. So I think all over the city there are real problems in AT&T estates with AT&T just, I'm sorry, with in CMHA housing with AT&T speeds just not being worth the effort. So yeah, CMHA is working on getting connectivity into their buildings in other ways.
Thank you. So the next question comes from Natalie, and it's, where can we learn what the Youth Council's recommendations are in order to advocate consistently for what they have voiced? So I'll leave that to Chantal and Mai to answer that question.
Where you can find most of the information from our past initiatives, which is interesting because the majority of it is on the Plain Dealer website. We have had several articles published about things that we've done, and some of the youth have personally expressed their thoughts and some of the facts that we discovered during our work. And more information is on our social media at EYEJ Youth Council for Twitter, Instagram, and we have a Facebook coming soon, as well as EYEJ.org.
And TikTok.
Yep, TikTok.
Okay, and Chantal, while I have you here, there's another question from Tara, and it says, Chantal, after the EYEJ Youth Council gets the necessary amount of signatures on the petition, what are the next steps?
The next steps after getting the signatures on the petition will be to have an official proposal made for everyone getting access to their devices, as well as just increasing community engagement and awareness so we can really apply pressure and make sure that this work is done.
I'll just add a little on that. I mean, it's the Youth Council is doing, the team is an amazing team. It's really honestly a blessing. And yes, I think it was yesterday they had a Zoom protest. Last Friday they had an event called Our Stories Matter, where a lot of youth came on to talk about their experiences with the digital divide and connectivity. And so they have, they're also working on policy. They have multiple more, a town hall coming up. They have some social media campaigns coming up. They have another event coming up. So like Chantal says, the information's definitely on the EYEJ.org website. You can look under EYEJ Youth Council, and definitely all over their social media. They have a really incredible letter actually that Chantal wrote to get their perspective on things as well. So I would definitely be paying attention to them right now. There is a lot happening.
Thank you. Our next question is from Shwetha. My apologies if I pronounced your name incorrectly. How can we work proactively to provide technology/devices, training, and internet access at a competitive price for youth and their families currently lacking such resources? How do we make companies respond? Oh, tough one.
So I guess I'll play Bill in this question. It's tough because the telcos, they don't have to respond. They have a lot of money for a lot of different reasons to fight anything that we want to do. One of the things that I struggle with in all of this is, because of COVID, there's going to be a lot of evictions coming up soon as well. And what happens when those families have to move? So even if we can provide internet access now, what happens in a month? What happens in 2 months? What happens in 3 months? So I hate to put it again on city officials, but making sure that we're not just addressing a current situation, but the current and next couple situations that are coming up and are very easily predicted, That's where I think our focus should be on. How do we get people connected and stay connected? But the biggest thing that we can do is get our government on our side, get our elected officials on our side, because they have the power to fight the telcos and get them to do things that they wouldn't want to do listening to us directly.
I'm going to actually add, and I'm going to jump in there and add to that. I think what Shweta is also referring to is how to create solutions. And what I am proud of is that the city of Cleveland is starting to do that.
Yeah.
So you have, some of it started with Cleveland Rising. There's this digital inclusion a group. There's now the Northeast Ohio Connectivity Task Force. And my point is that, EYEJ has a lot of experience with this. When you bring people together from all different walks of life, different parts of society, different ages, different ethnicities, you can really create great innovation. So that's my answer to some of that.
Can I jump in real quick again? The best way to solve this problem is to honestly listen to Bill. Bill has been doing this for years. He's been one of the first ones to mention it at the very beginning. If we would all listen to him at the very beginning, we wouldn't be in this situation.
That's
so
a good point.
The very easiest answer is ask Bill, do what Bill says, the problem will be solved.
Okay, here's what Bill says. Is Bill on mute? No. This is not primarily a technology problem.
Right.
There are lots of different ways that connectivity gets created, and they work in different ways, right? For different purposes. I'm not a big fan of relying on Wi-Fi hotspots based on cell service for a variety of reasons. We have a lot of experience with it in Cleveland, particularly in Glenville and Huff, where a lot of them have been used through the Ashbury Center over the last 7 years. But I'll tell you, they're really good if for people who have to move, right? They're mobile devices, and mobile devices are great for people who have to be mobile. So that's what they're great for. That's the niche that they occupy. Wi-Fi in place, right? Having good, strong Wi-Fi available in a setting is great for purposes for people who need free data on their smartphones, which is a lot of people, right? So street Wi-Fi, park Wi-Fi, airport Wi-Fi. People love the Wi-Fi at the airport. That's all great. That really serves a purpose. It doesn't serve a purpose if you're sitting in your bedroom and you're not next to a window and you can't really get it in the window, right? They're putting in a utility network that's run by the city, which a number of cities around the country have done. The one in Chattanooga just announced that its new fiber network that they built is now going to be providing free service to all the school children in Chattanooga, right? Announced that yesterday. 100 megs up, 100 megs down. Very, very fast service. That's great, but it isn't free. There's no way to run that network and provide it to everybody really, really cheaply. So it's got to be heavily subsidized. So there's different approaches. There's different layers. What it all takes is that you have some leadership in a community that's going to, and I mean a lot of leadership, diverse leadership from different sectors, that's going to just decide the problem is to make sure that all those layers are available to everybody. And that just takes a lot of coordination and leadership. And some acceptance that it takes a village, right? This is not going to be one person's or one group's completely baked product. It's going to be a process involving a lot of entities. And the thing that is frustrating about Cleveland historically, I'm one of the people who's been doing this for 25 years, right? Yeah, enough of that, right? I'm an old guy, but what's been disappointing is that until very recently, there's been almost no public leadership in this space. That's not true across the country, right? But it is true in Cleveland. And I include in public leadership the foundations. The Cleveland Foundation started being interested in this 4 years ago. That's just a fact. Thank you, Leon. But that's a fact, right? And so you know, not that nobody did anything, but that we didn't have a coordinated, concerted community priority, right? So now we kind of do, right? And so that's very hopeful. But we should not deceive ourselves that, you know, this is going to be something that people can just slam dunk because they're paying attention in this 6-month period. That isn't the way it works. So, so that's what Bill thinks, right? Bill thinks is that there's a lot of room for playing in this field, and it's going to take a lot of people together to do it. And it just means that you have to believe what Adam said, which is this is a central issue, right? Because it affects so many other issues. So it's just going to take some concentration and resources.
And I just want to pipe in there. I think I want to be clear, like, we're not putting down Leon. If anything, we're grateful that he's there in that position. But
Right.
also, I want to express, you know, when you're in that position, you don't have a ton of support, immediate support, and you may, and I'm not only talking about him, I'm talking about a lot of leadership in Cleveland
Right.
may not be aware of the opportunities that might be sitting right in front of them.
That's right.
So I just ask that the community be open and maybe humble ourselves a little bit to be open to real solutions that can make incredible impact. And I go back to being an amazing win for the city.
So to your point, that's one of the reasons why I tell people speak up and talk to your officials so that they do know how it affects you.
100%. Everybody, doesn't matter your background.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we've got on the youth council, we've got kids from Shaker, you know, we've got kids from Case Western Reserve. Everybody needs to speak up about this. Everybody.
So we have time for, we'll try to squeeze in 2, but I think we can definitely get to 1. So there's a question from Edith. Thank you all for this conversation. When all the kids/students are fully connected and provided with the appropriate digital devices, what additional steps can we take to support their learning and parents?
That's good. I would stop there. So I love that question. The digital literacy piece is probably one of the most important areas because, yep, we can get the technology in. Yes, we can get the fundraising in, but it's actually the adoption and actually educating the kids and actually just continuing using it is very important. But I would start to build in, no matter what happens in the city, I would start to build it into the daily conversation. And that's a good first step into your daily life, your family or your friends about this topic. I think that's a good first step. And then, yeah, the city and the community has a responsibility. And I know that there's many entities, including Cleveland Metropolitan School District and EYEJ, we're all thinking about this digital literacy piece. So I do expect, whether it's through policy or whether it's within programming, to see a lot more support around that in the city.
One thing that I'd love to see happen with this is making engagement with technology and innovation be commonplace. So encourage kids to use it however they see fit. Obviously teach them the basic rules of safety, but allow them to explore, allow them to learn, allow them to break in and fix. That's how innovation comes about. It's not here's the manual and you can only use it this way. It's here's the basic rules, the basic laws of what you're using. Have fun with it.
Yes, 100%.
Right. And I will just say that part 2 of this conversation that we're having, and I'll give you a little bit more detail in a moment, we will be talking about digital literacy and education. So more to come on that. So we'll just close out with this final question. The news is all about Digital C and CMSD partnership for connectivity, but it sounds like they will only cover 3% of homes at best. How much are they getting for this work? Are they the best partners?
Well, I'm going to say, first of all, if the plan that Digital C is trying to implement is going to cover considerably more than 3% of households that are in need. Whether they succeed or not, we'll see. but the plan is not. Their goal is something like 40,000 households in the city, and so that's a lot more than 3% of the need. And it's, I don't know where that number came from, but it's not fair. It is an expensive proposition. They're trying to raise, I don't know, Adam, maybe
36 million.
My understanding is, yes, it's something in the 30 to 40 million range. That's basically the capital system. That's an expensive system. And so, you know, it's always open to debate, right? Whether that's, you know, the best strategy. I want to, you know, make a point that what it accomplishes something that isn't necessarily the only thing we need to accomplish, right? So it's not the same thing as universal Wi-Fi, and it's not the same thing as fiber in every home, right? It's in the middle. It's an attempt to get pretty good connectivity at a very cheap but not free price, right? And to take advantage of certain situations that exist in the city. So I think it's completely fair to discuss whether, you know, that's where the basket that eggs should be in. But those are the people who right now are in the lead for doing that thing, right? And I would just say if there's a better idea, people should try to figure out a way to put it out there and implement it. I don't actually think the money is as much of an issue as, frankly, as having a good technology theory in that case and having the bandwidth to build it on, right? Which is a very hard thing to come by. So Adam, I don't know, maybe you want to add to that, but it's perfectly fair debate, but I think we should start with having you know, a fair understanding of what people are trying to do.
So yeah, I am the former Digital C employee, so I can speak on that. Yes, the goal for Digital C's plan is to cover much more than 3% and much more than that. So the goal is 40 to 50,000 households. I believe within 5 years, it was the last estimation that we had when I was there. As Bill said, whether it gets there or not is a different question. Whether it's the best game in town is another fair question to have. But as of right now, it's the only organization, I don't want to say only organization doing something, but they're at least causing the telcos to pay attention and react. And that is that competition that could, in fact, drive prices down and quality up. So no, it might not be perfect. It is probably the best thing currently there. But as long as there's that adjustment in the market, as long as AT&T and Spectrum are saying, okay, we have to step our game up, there's nothing, I don't see it being a bad thing. And I do believe that there are other opportunities coming down the pipeline, other potential solutions. And as Bill said, there's room for all of it. If you have multiple opportunities, multiple solutions, more people will get served with a solution, with a quality solution.
And I just want to say, I mean, I appreciate Digital C doing a lot of pavement along the way in Cleveland. I just posed the question, you know, my focus is always the youth. My question is, are we willing to wait another 2.5 to 5 years to get internet access in the city when there are solutions right in front of our face, not hotspots, by the way. So I just posed that. Muted, Kenyatta.
My apologies. That's technology for you. So just to close out the program, first I wanted to say thank you, everybody, because this has been such a powerful conversation. So I asked all of the panelists if they could just provide a brief 1-minute summary on a key point that they hope viewers take away from today's conversation about connectivity. So,
I'll say I'm excited. I'm really excited to hear about new opportunities in the next couple of weeks that are extremely innovative and open-minded and solution-oriented and community-focused and empowering to Black and Brown folks and just very thoughtful. So I'm excited.
great. Chantal?
I'm equally excited too. I just think that if nonetheless, if something's going to get accomplished. But nonetheless, if nothing gets accomplished, we're bringing great conversations to the community and reminding people of things that they thought was going on. And then I think that before, people thought that the reason that they didn't have good internet was their fault, like they were being too cheap or they just weren't making enough. But it's really things that were put in place by these companies and these officials. So I'm just glad that we're able to educate the public on this, and I'm excited to see what gets done.
The one thing that I would stress is the equity aspect of all of this. There are opportunities to really build with communities and provide resources for communities, not building to make a profit or building to have another business. Building with communities is the best way to go. It's the most long-term benefit. It provides the most opportunity and resources for communities. So if we could stress building with communities and not building to communities, that would be my biggest impression.
Amen. And I would only add to that the thing about this technology is that it isn't that hard for people to be players in the field themselves. And by that I mean ordinary individuals living in their homes, figuring something out with their neighbors. It's one of the great advantages of information technology is that it likes being decentralized and controlled if somebody isn't making a big effort to centralize that control. And unfortunately, that opportunity, well, we had 40 little ISPs providing service in Cleveland in 1999, right? Because people were doing it from their bedrooms, right? And that situation is something that I think is the long-term solution, not another great big system, right? And so I think we should think that way, right? This is the question that I don't think any of the current plans, as good as they are, have really addressed, which is how do we genuinely engage everybody in solving their own problems with this technology.
Mm-hmm.
Told you, listen to Bill.
Amen.
So thank you. I just want to say thank you again to Adam, to Bill, Chantal, and Mai for this powerful conversation. I want to thank all of the viewers today for your questions and your feedback about the conversation. Today is the last live episode of EYEJ Speaks, but due to the importance of this topic, we will be airing a second episode on connectivity. So some of the subjects that you all brought up about digital literacy and equity will be part of that second conversation. It will air in a special evening watch party on August 6th. So encourage your friends, your families, your neighbors to join the celebration and to be part of that conversation. We will have a kickoff pre-party at 6:45 and 7 p.m. we will start the program. So I want to encourage everybody to share that information. We'll have the link live later today on Facebook, so you can sign up for that. And finally, as an EYEJ volunteer and the producer of this series, it has been a pleasure and an honor to work with such amazing people. I want to thank the EYEJ team for all of their help. Mai, of course, Tara, Mega, Jay Wynn, Max, Andre, Pia, Anna, Katie, and Haley. And most importantly, if we were able to empower one person with this program or reach one young person looking to be an agent for change in their community, this was well worth it. And this is what it's all about, just really uplifting and empowering young people so that they know how they can go into their respective communities and enact change. So we will see you next week, August 6th, for our Facebook Live watch party. And until then, stay empowered. Have a great day, everybody.